turning to some major news coming out of Israel. The country's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, reducing working relations with 12 of the 14 nations that voted to approve a UN Security Council resolution that condemned Israeli settlements in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. Take a look at the list of nations and what it includes. Here's the money story for you. Britain, France, Russia, China, Japan, and many others. And remember, Netanyahu blasted the Obama administration for abstaining during Friday's vote. Such a change, in particular, that we have seen in the last 8 years under President Obama in our relationship with Israel. I want to bring in Foundation for Defense and Democracies founder and president Clifford to weigh in on what fallout we're going to see from Israel's strains with these major players in the UN. And, you know, we've been following this story so closely after the vote last week, and I think one of the most troubling things here is the fact that you now have Israeli officials publicly saying they believe that the Obama administration orchestrated what happened in the United Nations last week. What do you think? Do you think that that's plausible?
Well, it's plausible. They say they have evidence. They say that evidence will be turned over to the Trump administration, and they wouldn't be displeased if President Trump were to turn it over to the American public so the American public can see it. What we know at the very least is that President Obama could have prevented this resolution from going through, and this resolution is very damaging. It's damaging to Israel. It's also damaging to the Palestinians because it makes the possibility of a real peace process very unlikely. Even negotiations become counterproductive. Essentially what this resolution says is we want to take away all the chips that Israel has to bargain with. And if you don't have chips, you don't get a good bargain. You don't even have a good negotiating session. You certainly don't get to a deal. That's what this is all about.
Look, you know, Clifford, I got to ask you, what is Israel trying to accomplish here by pulling away from working relations? I mean, the economy of Israel is strong. We've seen incredible technology that's come out of that country for years. So isn't this a dangerous move for them, considering that this is the UN and business, and maybe those two things are separate right now?
I don't know that it's a dangerous move. I think Israel is willing to say, look, if you are abusing us, if you were treating us like second-class citizens of the world, which the UN has for years and years, then we'll absorb some damage. We'll take that. We'd rather not have such close relations with you. You can't simply do this to us, treat us like this, and expect we're going to get on normally. You've done something damaging. You've done it for your own reasons. Maybe you've done it because you think this is a way to appease the mutual enemies of Israel and of these countries. The war against Islamic radicalism is being fought by the West, but not in a half-hearted fashion. I think Israel is willing to say, look, we understand what you did, and we're not going to forgive you for it easily.
You know, what's interesting is Liz Klayman actually has been overseas. She's actually been in Jerusalem. She got an exclusive interview with former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Danny Ayalon. And I want to read you what he told her in the sit-down that we're seeing a picture of right now. He said, quote to her, "You've got 1 million killed in Syria, a brutal autocratic regime in Iran. You've got Turkish President Erdogan arresting justices, tearing Libya, the Russians invading Ukraine, taking Crimea, and no resolutions against any of them at all. There's one yardstick for Israel, another for the rest of the world." Does he have a point here?
Oh, he has a very strong point, and it's a point that I think President-elect Trump is very well aware of. The UN has become an impotent organization when it comes to anything important going on in the world. Genocide of Christians and Yazidis, the carnage, 500,000 dead, 11 million refugees now from Syria, failing states, whatever it is. The only thing that the UN does is bash Israel. We pay for a lot of it. American taxpayers pay for about a quarter of it. Should that continue? There are those in Congress, and I think President Trump will align with them, who say it's time to stop giving American taxpayer money to the UN, especially if the UN sees itself as some sort of global government. I think President Obama sees it that way. I know that President Trump does not. So I think a downgrading of the UN is something that is very likely in the next administration, and probably sooner rather than later.
And Donald Trump has said that. We've got some breaking news, some international news as well. Cliff May, I want to thank you for being with me right now.